Okay, let's talk about something really important. We are in a race against time, a global race to figure out how to feed everyone on this planet. But what if I told you there's a technology that can literally put plant growth on fast forward? Today, we're going to look at something called speed breeding and how it's hacking the very concept of time to help secure our future.
So, before we get to the really cool solution, we have to understand just how big the problem is. Our global food system, well, it's under a ton of pressure, and the old ways of doing things just aren't cutting it anymore.
I mean, it all boils down to this one massive question, right? How are we going to feed the world in 2050? And this isn't some far off thought experiment. This is what scientists are desperately trying to solve right now.
And here's why. By the year 2050, that's the number of people we expect to have on this planet 10 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. To feed everyone, we need a huge increase in food production, and we have to do it without wrecking the planet.
And this is where we run into a huge problem. Our traditional ways of creating new types of crops, the ones that yield more or can survive a drought, it's just so slow. The pace of our innovation is really struggling to keep up with the pace of climate change and population growth. Just look at this. This is a typical timeline for conventional breeding. That first step alone, line development, that can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years. That's a decade just to get a stable new plant variety ready for testing. In the race we're in, we just don't have that kind of time. So, how do you break a bottleneck that big? Well, the answer, and you're not going to believe this, it actually has its roots in outer space. No, really. This is where a technique called speed breeding comes into the picture. At its heart, it's all about creating a perfect, controlled environment for a plant. You manipulate the light, the temperature, basically tricking it into sprinting through its entire life cycle, from one seed to the next, way faster than it ever could out in a field. And the origin story here is just fantastic. It all started with NASA. See, they were trying to figure out how to grow food for astronauts on long missions, like to Mars. So they ran experiments with giving plants almost nonstop light. And that research laid the foundation for everything we now call speed breeding. Okay, so what's the secret sauce here? How do you actually convince a plant to live its life in fast forward? Well, it all comes down to creating the absolute perfect day every single day. Let's break down the recipe. First, you basically get rid of night. You give the plants up to 22 hours of light so they're photosynthesizing almost constantly. Second, you dial in the temperature to perfection, a nice 22 degrees Celsius during the day, a little cooler at night. Third, you control the humidity. And finally, and this is a really clever part, you can harvest the seeds a little early to kickstart the next generation even faster. Honestly, the best way to think about it is this. You're creating a perfect, endless summer day. The plant has everything it could possibly want, so it has absolutely no reason to slow down. It just grows and grows and grows. So what's the result of all this? What happens when you give a plant its own personal paradise? Well, the results are, and I'm not exaggerating here, dramatic. It completely changes the speed of agricultural science. Hey, remember that old timeline, right? The one that took 5, even 10 years? With speed breeding, you crush that down to just 1 or 2 years. That's not just a little faster, it's a whole different ballgame. And let me put that another way. Out in a normal field, you might get 1, maybe 2 generations of a crop, like wheat, in an entire year. With speed breeding, you can get up to 6. 6! Imagine getting 6 chances to improve a plant and select the best traits in the same amount of time it used to take for just 1. The progress is just multiplied. And look, this isn't some sci-fi theory, it's already out there, making a real difference. We're talking about successes like DS Faraday wheat, which has more protein, or salt-tolerant rice, which is huge for coastal farms, or barley that's resistant to disease or drought, exactly what we need in a changing climate. These are real solutions to real problems, and they're being developed in record time. But here's the thing, just going faster, that's only part of the equation. The real revolution, the next agricultural revolution, happens when you start combining this speed with other amazing technologies. And this is so important to get. Speed breeding isn't just about putting your foot on the gas. It's about getting smarter. Way, way smarter. So think of it like this. Speed breeding is the engine. It's the accelerator. And then you start plugging in other high-tech tools like genomic selection, where you can predict a plant's performance just from its DNA, or even gene editing for making super precise genetic changes. Together, it's a powerful toolkit for building better crops.
When you put those first two together, you get this amazing combo that scientists are calling speed GS. Because the growth cycles are so fast, you can test your DNA predictions over and over again, really quickly. It lets you learn and get better with each generation, which massively boosts how much improvement you can make each year. Okay, so it's not all easy street. There are definitely some big challenges to overcome. For one, the growth chambers and lighting systems are expensive to set up. You need people with special training to run them, and you need to figure out the perfect recipe for all the different crops we rely on. But, if we can solve those challenges, the potential is just immense. We're talking about being able to design crops for the exact problems we face, crops that need less water, or can fight off a new disease, or just provide better nutrition. That's the power we're unlocking. And it leaves us with one final huge question. With tools as powerful, what kind of future do we really want to grow?